Welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you. Thanks for checking out the channel. Everybody had a great 4th of July and is excited for the weekend ahead. Let's get into this beautiful Friday. We have a little heat fodder that is out there from the national landscape. Zach Lowe, host of the Lowe Post, posted a little blurb in his column today on the Miami Heat reportedly having interest or expressing interest in Lauri Markkanen. Of course, the former All-Star from the Utah Jazz. This is what Zach Lowe writes. He says, trading Lauri Markkanen would buy Utah a one-way ticket towards the front of the tank line. Markkanen indeed stands as perhaps the league's most intriguing trade chip with Mikal Bridges now in New York. A pile of teams have shown interest in him, including the San Antonio Spurs, the Sacramento Kings, the Miami Heat, and the Golden State Warriors, sources said. History suggests Danny Ainge, Utah CEO, will move Markkanen once somebody meets his price. That could be tomorrow or months from now if the Jazz raise Markkanen's salary, then sign to a contract extension once they are allowed to do so in early August. So that is a big part of all this with Lauri Markkanen, which does give him some bit of leverage in all of this, because if he's going to go somewhere, you would imagine it's to a place where he wants to sign his big extension, wherever that may be. And so you do have, in this case with him, a little bit of, if he is going to this, he does have a little bit of leverage, because he can say, well, I don't want to sign there, right? It is a piece of this in the Lauri Markkanen sweepstakes that does have to be considered, much like the Donovan Mitchell thing, right? It's kind of, it's put in this position where it's like, all right, if he wants to go to Sacramento, does he really want to go to Sacramento? Does he really want to go to San Antonio? Does he want to go to a place in San Antonio where, does he wonder about the fit of him and Wembanyama? Does he wonder? Like, these are all things that I think Markkanen is going to have to wonder. One of the reasons I was skeptical on this is I kind of felt like Lauri Markkanen, if he had all things, you are the man in Utah, you get that monster extension, and then it's like, now I can make my way out, which is, I think, a lot of people are looking at the Donovan Mitchell thing, but I think Donovan Mitchell's got a little bit of the Bradley Beal thing where, like, he likes being the man in a place, and that was always one thing to account for. You never know, like, how many guys really have the thirst to just go and contend, and how many guys just want to be, we're good, but also I like being the man, and I don't want to, change how that is. I kind of like how this feels. So don't really know with Markkanen. I got to be honest with you. I don't really know a lot about his personality or anything to that. I would like it if our boy Barkov, maybe gets on the horn with his Finnish brethren and be like, hey, let me tell you about a little place called South Florida, huh? Barky would be like courtside every single game that he could be. That dude loves hoops. So there is that. Like, that element to this whole fodder does have to be recognized. Now, to Zach's point about Danny Ainge, one of the things that's also made me skeptical on the whole thing is I just imagine him wanting a heap of picks for him. He sees the price. He mentions Mikal Bridges, all the picks that he went for. You have other teams that just have more of an arsenal there with the other squads in this this whole derby. The San Antonios, the Sacramentos. So is the taste for the Heat's young guys enough for Danny Ainge to want to go? Maybe they are, because, I'm sure there's going to be, if you were to put a Jovic or a Jaquez in a deal like this, or a Tyler Hero, then they essentially could become the Lauri Markkanen of their tanking team, and then boom, the cycle goes and flips again while he's trying to get into this whole derby for the 2025 draft. So, which the Heat, their pick is lottery protected. But if it's not, then it's going to go to OKC, not in the lottery. Zach writes, Utah can do this because it has cap space. Most of the teams interested in Markkanen are capped out and thus could not extend him upon acquiring him. It's possible Markkanen would have more trade value if the Jazz extend him first, providing security for the interested teams. Either way, Utah cannot keep doing this thing. They are frisky for 2 months before the front office pulls the plug, and they end up picking around number 10. So, yeah, making a decision about, do you want to be kind of stinky, or do you want to just really screw the pooch on this season? So it's interesting because this has been one of the names on the outskirts. I think, everybody, including myself, was focused on Spida. Boom, he's off the board. Where is the next place they go? Who is the other shoe to drop? Who is the next guy? Because there was this report from the Miami Herald, from Barry and Anthony Chang, where they had said, this whole DeMar DeRozan thing that has gone around has been a little bit weird. I gave you my theory on why the Heat maybe kind of kicked the tires on it. I thought it maybe had something to do with keeping Jimmy Butler happy. And DeMar is a guy that obviously he has a good relationship with, he respects. But it does take a lot of, cap jujitsu. You got a lot of places where you got to bend and twist and get yourself to position to get DeMar DeRozan for any kind of money that he actually wants. You got to give him an extension if you sign and trade for him. That caps you out. So Barry writes this article, talks a little bit about some of the moves that he can make, re-signing Caleb Martin. That's been a weird situation, obviously, where Caleb reportedly was offered an extension, according to the Herald, before he opted out. He chose not to. Now his market seems like it may have dried up. You could get a player on the taxpayer mid-level, which is about $5.2 million. That's the easiest thing, and really their only easy non-obstacle path they could do, but obviously the money's kind of crazy right now. Nobody really wants to bend to giving into that type of a deal. Or you could get rid of a player and some salary and bring somebody back. So obviously you could, the way you would do it with Utah, I believe because of their cap space situation, you could trade Tyler there, bring back Markkanen, even though there's, Tyler makes about $10 more million than he does. It's a doable trade-wise, and the Heat could shed salary. And then, of course, you probably have to add more young guys and a pick on top of that. The Heat have signed their 2 draft picks, so if they're going to be included in the deal, that would have to wait, I guess, about 30 days, wherever it's at right now, when the official sign date was. And then this was the interesting part from the boys from the Herald with their piece. It says, there's a reason the Heat hasn't quickly spent that money. According to 3 people who have had contact with the Heat, Miami wants to maintain flexibility with that space in case an opportunity to add a high-level player becomes available. So they don't want to put themselves in the second apron. They don't want to tie it up with an extension just yet because, this is the situation why you would. You would want to do it if you want to add a Lauri Markkanen, a Brandon Ingram, a Trae Young. One of these names that might be out there, might be available, and the Heat is looking. I think the thing that I like that has happened over the last couple of days it's been a frustratingly quiet market for the Miami Heat, but I don't feel like they're just sitting on their hands. I do feel like they are kicking some ideas around, and that I think should get the Heat fan at least a little bit juiced up. Maybe they end up swinging and missing or not even taking it at bat, but I hope that there is some realization in that front office that some type of a shakeup is needed. And I don't even think this is just from a talent standpoint. I just think that the Miami Heat do need a level of infusion of energy and something new, especially to your top 2 guys, to be like, hey, this is what we got for you guys. Let's kind of roll the dice. Let's see. Let's roll this out there. Let's roll the ball out there with a new fit to get everybody juiced up for. Get the fan base invigorated. Get the players invigorated. Get the coaching staff invigorated. I think all of this stuff can kind of open up the minds. If you roll out there with the same core that you've been going out there with, it's just like how many more games can you play with each other before you get sick of each other, especially if you haven't gotten to the ultimate finish line yet. It's one thing to do it if you have won a title. It's one thing to do it if you feel like, you're not scratching and clawing every single game. But I do think that there's a part of that where it's not only just an upgrade for the sake of talent, but I do think, just giving a little bit of a shakeup should help things out. The Herald also wrote that there have been Heat trade discussions with teams, including one with substantial cap space, though further details are unclear. One source says that Miami also wants to see what good players become available in the trade market in days and weeks ahead. So here's the thing with Miami. If they did already also offer a Caleb Martin their deal and he signs with somebody else, if you're a Heat fan, what can you do about it? You already knew that it was a likelihood you were going to lose him. And I don't think you're going to move heaven and earth now to bring him back, or Haywood Highsmith. That's the danger of losing them. Sure. But I think that's kind of, I think that holding pattern is okay. Plus, there's an element of the Max Strus thing where we all knew Max Strus was gone, but it really took up until the end when there was a sign and trade before he was gone. And so there could be a work in there somewhere. There's been some theories about like a Caleb Martin, DeMar DeRozan double sign and trade, something like that. I don't know. Look, to me personally, like DeMar DeRozan, I am not against the move, but I'm not the Heat where I'm like, hey, we're not going to, hold everything up and move the sun and stars to make this move happen necessarily. Now, getting back to the Markkanen thing, have seen some things on Twitter from Ethan Skolnick and the boys over at 5 Reasons. They say, hey, there is nothing to Lauri Markkanen. I believe Ethan, let me just, what he had said is that he had commented on some of the stuff that's out there with him and says, he quoted on the Heat vs. Haters and said they're not in on him at this time. That maybe there's a play of like the Heat being used for leverage. I think the thing is with this situation is it's really a question of with these teams that they want, like, the Heat's in on them. Like the other teams don't know. It's like if the I'll give an example. If the Jazz want a bevy of picks, right? And let's just say the Spurs are talking to Danny Ainge. And he's like, I got other teams interested. And they're like, oh yeah, who? Miami? They don't have any picks, dude. So do you want their young players? So that's really a case of if you are negotiating with these teams, it's kind of like, well, what do you want? Do you want the players or do you want the picks? Because Miami has the players. And I do think it's been interesting. Everybody is, look at they don't have anything. It's like, well, they do have a first team all rookie. They do have a proven star. I should say they have a starting power forward who's 21 years old, who's going to play, for one of the best countries in basketball this Olympics. They do have a proven 20-point scorer and 6th man of the year. It's not like they have nothing. These are very good players. 2 of them are very, very cheap. So I don't think the Heat are going at this thing with an empty war chest. Do I think the Lauri Markkanen thing is going to happen? I just think with Danny Ainge, yeah, I would agree. With this party, I would say probably unlikely, just because, and that's been my skepticism with it the whole time. But to see that the Heat have actually kicked the tires on it, or it has been reported that the Heat are kicking the tires on it, it's exciting. I like the fact that we're starting to get some fodder, some rumors around them, and they're not just sitting on their hands. And the DeMar DeRozan thing, yeah, it was nice. Like I said when it first was reported, I'm like, hey, at least it looks like they're moving on something. But I wasn't that excited about that particular move. This one, I think, would get everybody really, really juiced up if it happens. And of the guys that are out there, theoretically Trey, Brandon Ingram. There was a report yesterday. The talks were that Brandon Ingram and the talks are heating up. That's another interesting one for sure. But if I had my ways about it, just personally, who would I want, Markkanen or Ingram? I think I'd go Markkanen. If all things were equal. But it's hard to know what even the Brandon Ingram market is, because it does seem like if one guy was going to go for less, it feels like that's the way it would go with New Orleans, just simply because fit, where everybody's at on that team. The writing is on the wall that he can't be back with them this year. Whereas Markkanen, as Zach Lowe, there's really no rush for the Jazz. They could offer him the money, but there's no real pressure for the Jazz to get rid of him, right? Which has always been which has always kind of raised my antenna with this whole thing. When the first rumor came out about Markkanen, it's just like, well, there's no clock for the Utah Jazz, really. Yes, his extension, but they're going to offer him the extension. They're going to stink. They want to stink. So they could pretty much roll this out up until the trade deadline if they wanted to, and then dump them off to a contender at the last minute. Whereas Brandon Ingram, there is going to be a little bit of heat on the New Orleans Pelicans to get rid of him because, the amount of bodies that they got, he doesn't seem to love the basketball fit there, wants the extension. But the thing with him that you got to be worried about is durability. We're talking about a a team that the whole message after the season was stay healthy, be available, get out there. Ingram, is not going to fit into that category. Ingram is a guy has been many of the issues with the Pelicans is you can't necessarily count on him to give you the games. And this is a guy who's not very old either and has had durability questions. So got to definitely throw up a red flag with that. So, but I like it. Not in rumors right now, baby. Let's go. I'm all about it.